In this week's episode of Let's Talk About Mental Health TV, I'm talking about how to manage your social media use more thoughtfully for better mental health. So, here comes the intro, and then let's talk. This is Let's Talk About Mental Health TV, a weekly show full of simple ideas for better mental health. I'm your host, Jeremy Godwin, and each week we'll be having some big conversations about mental health. Plus, I'll be sharing lots of ways that you can improve and maintain your overall well-being. So, let's talk about mental health. Because the more we talk about it, the easier it gets. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Let's Talk About Mental Health TV, the show full of simple ideas for better mental health and well-being. I'm your host, Jeremy Godwin. Thank you so much for joining me this week. This episode is all about social media use and being more thoughtful with social media. When Alanis Morissette sang about things being ironic, do you think that maybe she had seen a vision of the future? A future where devices that are supposed to bring us closer together, like our phones, actually end up causing us to feel greater disconnection than ever before. I ask you that question because I caught up recently with my aunt for lunch while I was up visiting my mother in the facility that she's being looked after in. And when we sat down for lunch, I was absolutely shocked to see large groups of people around us who were, well, I mean, actually not that around us because hooray for social distancing. I like my personal space. But groups of people around us who were eating their lunch and there was zero conversation going on because everybody was sat on their phones, focusing on what was going on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. And it absolutely blew my mind that was happening for some of the groups throughout the entire meal. Now, no judgment, but what the actual? So here's my suggestion for the next week. Next time you're with people, put your phone down and actually be present. I know it's such a bizarre idea, isn't it? But anyway. I share all of this because I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with social media. I look at Instagram every morning over my coffee. It's my little daily dose of inspiration. But I'm really mindful about how I do that. And I curate the accounts that I follow. And I focus as much as possible on getting the balance right between following positivity and inspiration while not completely burying my head in the sand. But unfortunately, it's almost impossible to avoid the darker side of social media, where it's clear that some people really can't help themselves for using these platforms to spread hatred and toxic opinions and all that sort of stuff. And we've seen, unfortunately, the impact of that happen time and time again around the world. And then, you need to factor in the fact that these platforms are supposed to be about bringing us together. And unfortunately, quite often the opposite happens, which is that they drive us apart. And, we're spending so much more time on our devices looking at things rather than actually interacting with people. And that can cause disconnection. So here's the thing. One of the things that's been demonstrated to have a positive effect on our mental health is a strong sense of healthy connection with other people. In fact, don't just take my word for it. According to Beyond Blue, which is a fantastic mental health organisation here in Australia, and I quote, "Connections matter. Strong ties with family, friends, and the community provide us with happiness, security, support, and a sense of purpose. Being connected to others is important for our mental and physical well-being, and can be a protective factor against anxiety and depression." So I don't want to harp on about this, but I'm going to say this one more time for the people in the back before I get into the how-to advice for this week. So here goes. Put your phone down, especially when you are with other people. And if you don't, then don't start complaining when you're feeling lonely or disconnected, because connection requires actual effort on all sides. And I'm sorry, but just hitting like on a post is not connection and is not real effort. So you need to do some of the work, and you need to be mindful of things that potentially can block you from being connected with other people. That doesn't mean that you make social media the enemy. I would very much struggle not to be on Instagram on a daily basis. But you don't have to fill every spare 3 seconds with a quick look through your feed to see what's going on. And so now I'm going to talk about a few simple ideas to help you have a healthier attitude for how you use social media, because there's some really good stuff that it can offer us. And, it's about finding the right balance, because if we're not mindful about how we use it and if we're not conscious of the decisions that we're making, it can be damaging to our mental health and well-being if we don't manage it in a smart way. So probably the absolute simplest thing that you can do is just doing one small thing a day, like putting it back into your pocket when you're with friends or family. I know I keep going on about this point, but it's amazing what a difference it makes. Because if you choose to really connect with those other people and invest even just 5 or 10 minutes in the conversation that you're having, then you're going to build on that relationship and that sense of connection over time. There are a few other simple ways that you can develop a healthier attitude towards social media and improve your mental well-being. And they are, first, set clear intentions. So when you use social media, what do you want from it? Is it about sharing stuff with friends? Is it about keeping up with people whose work you enjoy? Or is it about finding stuff that makes you feel inspired or makes you laugh? For me, I set some really clear boundaries around what I use social media for, and if an account doesn't fit within those boundaries, then I unfollow. I do so with kindness. I don't personally see the point of flame wars with people or sending somebody a message to say, I think you're crap, and that sort of stuff. If you've got negative opinions about people, keep them to yourself. But if you're not finding an account actually fits within what you're wanting to get out of social media, unfollow, let go. So my next point is, don't measure your worth by your number of followers. Look, in the work that I do, especially building my profile around my podcast and this show, etc., my writing, I used to get a bit upset when I could see followers dropping off from my socials, but now I limit the amount of times that I actually check my total followers to only once or twice a month, because if I do just keep an eye on the numbers, I will go nuts. And the thing is that people will always drop off no matter what you do. And it's not about you. First of all, some of them aren't real followers, some of them are bots. And second of all, if people do unfollow you, that's not about you. That's about them and their choices. Like most things, people do things like unfollowing based on themselves and what's going on in their life and what's a priority to them. And it's really not about you. So don't really get focused on the number of followers that you have. Just focus more on the quality of the interactions that you have and the quality of the posts that you are posting, if that's appropriate. The next point is to share positive thoughts and let go of negative ones. And it comes back to what I said before. Did your grandmother ever used to say to you, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all? Well, I think we need much more of that in the world at the moment. And this is absolutely one of those things where you can make a massive difference in the world just by virtue of the choices that you make every single day. What you choose to do and what you don't do, those are the things that do have a ripple effect. It might only be through the small group of people that you interact with, but it makes a difference. So if there's somebody on social media that you don't like, don't send a negative message. Don't feel the need to comment. I've shared on here and on the podcast many, many times that Drag Race is like my favorite show of all time. Every season, I follow all of the queens, and then inevitably I'll find that there are a couple whose personalities don't gel with me. I do not send them comments because I'm an adult, but also I just don't think that energy needs to be out there. Just because they're not a fit for me doesn't mean they're not a good fit for somebody else. So I will kindly unfollow, and that's it. Done. Easy. You don't need to make a big thing out of stuff that you don't like. Focus on what you do like, and you attract more positivity towards yourself as a result of that. My next point also kind of comes into that, which is around don't get invested in the comments. And especially, like I said, I follow Drag Race, and if you read some of the comments, even by accident, holy crap. Look, for me, because I do stuff publicly, I find that sometimes I do get the odd snarky comment or even just downright nasty comment. But again, that has nothing to do with me. So don't get hung up on the comments. And, also, when you're scrolling through your feed and looking at other people's accounts, especially people in pop culture, do not read the comments. Let me say that again. Do not read the comments. It will make a massive difference. If you just skip the comments, you don't need to get involved. Some people will always go down the path of drama. That's their choice. You don't need to be a part of it. If you really want to put your mental health and your well-being as being your number one priority, then that's the stuff that you need to make some conscious choices about letting go of and walking away from, because drama will do your head in. Just because some other people are nasty, that doesn't mean that you need to go anywhere near it. My next point is to have set times for social media use, and then outside of those times, do not touch it. This might sound really like one of those bits of advice that your mum or your grandma might give you, pop your phone over there while we're having dinner and don't touch it. But look, for me, what I found works really well is I look at Instagram twice a day, and that's it. Because I know that I have a tendency towards having a little bit of an addictive personality, so I have to set and maintain very clear boundaries with myself. Also, I just scroll my feed, which in other words, the accounts that I choose to follow, instead of going through that broader explore option where you see everything that could be potentially related, because I want to limit what I see on my curated feed. Every now and then I'll go through the explore, but it's pretty rare. That's the thing. Outside of whatever times you set yourself, be it once or twice or 3 times a day, whatever it is, do your social media and then get on with your life. And please stop filling those spare 5 or 10 minutes of your day with scrolling social media. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. If you choose to spend the 5 or 10 minutes here or there, let's say you're waiting in queue at the supermarket, or you're waiting for the train, or whatever it is, if you use those spare 5 or 10 minutes here and there to quickly catch up on social media, and you do that 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day or more, what you're doing is actually training your brain to have that need, that strong desire for a hit of social media. It actually becomes an addiction. And so over time, what you're doing is training your brain to say more, more, more. And your brain can be a really greedy bugger if you let it. So it's about saying, okay, well, I've got to spare 5 minutes. What can I do with that time? And you could use that time really constructively. 5 minutes of mindfulness here and there. Just simply be and observe your surroundings and experience with all 5 senses. You can use that time to reflect on your day so far and some of the things that you're wanting to achieve throughout the rest of the day. You can even use that 5 minutes to create. I quite often find myself when I'm in a queue thinking, okay, are there any ideas that I've got for upcoming episodes of the podcast or this show or social media posts or whatever, and I'll quickly jot a few down on my phone. If you choose to fill those times with some gentle mindfulness or even a bit of mental quietness, you'll find that it recharges your batteries much better than a hit of social media could ever hope to do. And then my final tip, which is a bonus tip, is just remember with social media, and it's the same with email, remember that not everyone gets humor or subtext, especially online, where it can be incredibly difficult to know what the intent of someone's message is. I'm sure we've all had a situation where we've misinterpreted a text message or an email from someone, like when someone fires off a really short message to you and you're left wondering what the hell's going on. And then you find out days later that in fact the person was just in a hurry but didn't want to keep you hanging on. So anyway, the same thing happens on social media all the time. You only have to look at the recent fuss about the wonderful Nigella Lawson's tongue-in-cheek way of saying microwave, and she pronounces it as microwave, clearly a joke, and then just how many people lost their absolute shit over it, thinking that she was so posh that she didn't know how to pronounce microwave. Honestly, have a sense of humor. Take everything with a dash of patience and don't jump to conclusions on things, especially when you're dealing with social media. For the most part, this stuff just is not that important. And it's not that serious, so we don't need to overcomplicate things and make them more of a drama than they need to be, or stir up drama where there isn't a need for any in the first place. It's the reason why I choose not to be on Twitter anymore. I don't want to single out any particular platform, and no disrespect to people who do enjoy using it, and hey, you do you. But for me, I have found that platform to be an absolute magnet for nastiness, and I just don't want any part of that anymore. It's the reason why I stopped watching the majority of reality television, except for Drag Race, of course, and Kirsty and Phil from the UK. The thing is, you can use social media as a means of finding inspiration and maintaining your connection with other people that you already have a connection with. And connection is actually one of the most important parts of good mental health and well-being. It's something that we all crave. And to quote the author and speaker and researcher Brené Brown, we are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. And without it, there is suffering. So that's nearly it for this week. Next week's episode is going to be all about dealing with negative thoughts and overthinking. So I hope you'll join me for that episode, which will be released on Wednesday the 10th of February here on YouTube. Also, check out this week's episode of the Let's Talk About Mental Health podcast, episode 64, Let's Talk About Patience. You can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and where all fine podcasts are found. You can also find that at the website, which is letstalkaboutmentalhealth.com.au. Find Let's Talk About Mental Health on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at LTA Mental Health. And you can also follow my work as an author, speaker, and general raconteur at Jeremy Godwin Official. And while you're here, take a moment to subscribe to the Let's Talk About Mental Health channel here on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode. I hope to see you again next week. Look after yourself and make a conscious effort to share positivity and kindness out into the world, because you get back what you put out. Take care and talk to you next time.